terms of spring cereals, or in terms of the staging at this point in time, it's really quite simple. The Zadoks scale, which is what we use here in Ontario, is fairly simple. You generally have two numbers. So for example, you'll hear me talk about growth stage 12, and then you'll hear me talk about growth stage 21, and then growth stage 31. Well, the first number always has a particular meaning. So when I say growth stage 12, that means a plant with two leaves. So many of these plants here are at growth stage 12. If you have a look at here, you can kind of see that they're just nicely one leaf and a second leaf coming, so growth stage 11 or growth stage 12. If we were into the tillering stage, which we're not quite here, then the 2 means tillers, and 21 is 1 tiller, 22 is 2 tillers, and then as we talked about it in another video, the 3 stage is the stem elongation stage, and that's where we start to get that stem elongation and feel the nodes going up the stem. So this is nicely at either growth stage 11 or 12, depending on which plants you're looking at in this particular So we're back in another wheat field looking at staging, and what we're seeing here today is wheat at the tillering stage. So that's the 2 stage, and if we look at these plants, you can tell that they're not really far advanced, but they're certainly past that kind of leaf stage, that first or second leaf. And when we dig up the plants, and actually it's one of the nice ways to actually count tillers is to dig up some plants, and every one of these plants, or tillers rather, will have a little leaf beside it, so that you kind of get, they call that a profile, and you can, well, it's a little hard to see on some of these plants. Let me actually get a different, sorry, that one didn't work out as well as I thought. Oh yeah. So we dig up some of these plants to look at tillers, and every tiller will come out kind of at a leaf axis, or the base of the leaf. So we have one here, you can see that was the leaf on the plant, and here's the tiller. Of course, I'm hanging onto the main stem here, and then you can see there's another tiller coming out right here, and there's the leaf from the main plant that was coming, and there could be in fact some tillers that came from the crown itself. There's not on this particular plant, and there's not yet another tiller coming from this leaf. So what we have here is a main stem with 2 tillers, so that would be growth stage 22. Other kind of cool thing, many times I get growers who ask me, how many tillers should a plant have? Well, realistically, if we're looking at a wheat field and we want that wheat field to have 150 bushel yield potential, we'd like to see at least 650 heads per square meter. I want to see enough plants there that I see plants with not more than 2 tillers. Anytime I see more than 2 tillers, I really think that my planting rate has been not high enough. Great. So whenever you're looking at a wheat field, it's important to stage it both from a weed control standpoint, a nitrogen standpoint, and also from a fungicide standpoint. So really going into the field and being able to stage that wheat is quite important. By the way, you look across this field, what a gorgeous field of wheat for the 27th of April, planted the 14th of September, really drives home the point how important planting date is. But when you start looking at this wheat, staging it, growth stage 31 is a really important stage, because that's the nitrogen needs to be on by growth stage 31, and weed control really should have been done by growth stage 31. So that's one of those stages. It's quite important to be able to tell. And even though we split that stem, and you can do that with the knife, it's quite simple to just walk into the field and within 3 seconds know whether you're at growth stage 31 or not. What you need to do is feel at the base of the main stem. Find a plant, feel at the base of the main stem, go to the soil level and squeeze. And if you can feel the stem crush, then you know the growing point has come above the ground. So as long as the growing point is below the ground, there is no stem. Of course, wheat stems are hollow, so if the stem doesn't crush, you know that you're not past growth stage 30. Once the stem crushes, you know that you're at growth stage 31. And so here's a plant here that I think shows that quite nicely. It's one of the main stems, and you can actually, if you look closely, you can see the bump here. But if you crush that stem, if you just feel that stem, you can feel it crush between your fingers. The stem is hollow, so you know for sure that that node has come above the ground. Then you can feel that bump in the stem. Once you feel that bump, you say, okay, that's growth stage 31. If in fact you go above that bump, and you can crush that stem again, and again it's hollow. That means you're going into growth stage 32. So this one in particular, you can just barely crush a wee bit of stem above that first node. 31 just starting to go into growth stage 32 on this particular plant. So that's really advanced for this time of year.
So now you can see very nicely that the node, the bump, was right here, and the growing point, the head, you can see the head right there, and that's all the rest of the stem and the leaves that are going to develop coming up past the head, or around the head. So your node was there, that next, or the growing point has just moved above that node, so your nice growth stage 31 moving into growth stage 32. And if we had a magnifying glass, you could actually count the number of spikelets you had on that head and get an idea of what yield potential you had at this particular point in time.
Absolutely. If you're going to the field to stage wheat, there's some real key messages there. But this book that happens to be available through the Ministry of Agriculture and Food and Bear Crop Science were key in terms of putting this book together. It's the Cereal Staging Guide. It's just an excellent resource, and virtually every grower who wants to manage wheat like a crop and not just treat it like a rotation should have one of these books. Excellent pictures in here. Thanks to Pete Smith for doing all the photography. You can see just awesome pictures in this book in terms of being able to stage that crop and at what stage it really is at. So make sure you get one of these books. It'll help you do the